So Ryan, big
Yo.
day for me and you today.
Yeah, but huh?
Can't actually believe it.
So we started at SA Express 10 years ago today.
To the day.
To the day.
Known you for 10 years. Can you believe it?
That's where all these grey hairs come from.
Yeah, I know, look.
Is that why you shaved them off?
Yeah, my folks always said, be careful who you keep as your circle of friends. And then
Clearly you didn't
I
listen.
become mates with this hooligan. I don't know.
Yeah, good times.
10 years, not always at Saks though, hey?
No, not no.
Yeah.
We started. This isn't our Saks 10-year anniversary. This is our Aviation friend-iversary.
Yeah.
So pretty cool. We'll go get a picture later.
Such a
Yeah.
cool name for bro romance.
It is, eh?
It is, huh?
If a bromance.
Bromance. Yeah.
Well, to get into it,
Any reason to go and have a beer afterwards? So just saying.
Oh, well,
Hashtag.
I'm good for that. Like now.
let's finish the show first. I don't know about you guys. Obviously, looking this week, it was very difficult to find positive news in the aviation sector, particularly internationally. It was just story after story of negativity. I mean, from a job employment point of view, Emirates, they got rid of a whole bunch of expats. I think most of the guys that were there on the South African Airways contract, I think most of those guys are back, if not all of those guys. And from what I understand, the guys that were on the Airbus fleet, I think something like 90% of them are,
Yep.
gone.
Yeah.
There's a few guys left, and hopefully they manage to hold on to those positions. But another bloodbath in Dubai, and it's such sad times. We were discussing the other day, actually. The Emirates guys. It's a whole another ball game for them, because the whole family moves down there. The kids are in school there. Some guys even sold up houses here and bought property there. And now forced to leave. So it's a hell of a difficult situation. So shout out to all those Emirates guys that have lost their positions and back in South Africa or anywhere else in the world. And if you first time you're listening to us, we've sort of tried to push out positivity and provide a platform of support. So even if you want to chat, give us a shout. Any of us. Look us up on LinkedIn. All our details will be in the show notes. And even if it's just a chat or find out what's happening in the industry here locally, please don't hesitate to give us a call.
Yeah.
IATA, this morning, I read an article that said the industry in the second half of the year, 2020, will burn through another 77 billion in cash.
It's heavy.
It's heavy. And that's $13 billion a month, or $300,000 a minute.
Makes you wonder if that's highly underestimated. If we look at what's happening in Europe now, Europe's effectively shutting down again. Britain is shutting down, and the public's just saying, well, for the rest of the year, let's shut down. To the extent it's like stay indoors, that is it. Shut Britain down again. So where is it going to go?
What are they basing their figures and their numbers on?
They're basing it on the World Health Organization, which has been proved to be wrong over and over and over again.
Because there was an article I was watching, the South African tourism industry are looking for more information and more definitive answers as to how government are basing their metrics on these numbers, because it's affecting the South African tourism industry so badly. With the borders being closed, well, open now, but with all these bans. Where and how are they basing these numbers on? Because some countries, the numbers are ultra high, some of them are pretty low. Nothing makes sense around this anymore.
Yeah, it's all, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me, but Brett, like you say, Europe is going back into some sort of semi-lockdown. It's not good for the industry at all. It's just continuous. EasyJet released figures as well. They're in trouble. Ryanair, obviously the same. And those numbers probably are optimistic. they're probably, it could be higher. So let's wait and see.
What I do enjoy is seeing Africa open up. And we've got some, Ethiopians stepping into SA, offering them a lifeline. Whether or not they're going to take it, I do like the way they coming into the fray. They're saying, we'll do a JV with you, we'll provide you with all the expertise, the pilots, the technicians, the leadership, but we are not interested in your debt.
Yeah.
Sort your debt out and do that. That's a typical real way of doing business. Bring in 350s and 787s. I mean...
But you know what's ironic with that, Brett? We don't need pilots in South Africa.
No,
there's a whole whack of pilots without a job that are highly trained and highly qualified. We've got qualified 350 pilots.
Yeah.
We've got qualified Dash 8 pilots. So what aircraft are they going to bring in? The aircraft were here as well. So the stuff that Ethiopian are going to bring in was all here 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah.
That's why I can't get my mind around how this is going to work, because I think essentially all our government is looking for is someone to come along and say, listen, we'll settle your debt, which is never going to happen. Flying airplanes and pilots is very counterintuitive.
And what I don't like with it, I mean, this was a group of ANC lawmakers, I believe, that went in search of, they put a team together to do a study and to try and see if, what is required, and they came up with, I think that it was Aviation Services Limited. It was presented to a group of ANC lawmakers.
ANC lawmaker.
And when you see those two things put together, something's dodgy over there.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see what happens. If it's a lifeline for SA, that's one thing, but it sounds like it's just purely Ethiopian coming in to take over what previously existed.
That's exactly what it would be. However, I think they would bring something to the table that is not in SA, clearly not. And that's leadership. That's that expertise is desperately needed in SA.
But what I'm saying is, if they're going to do that, why restart anything at a cost? They can just carry on flying in and out as they are right now. What are they going to do differently by taking over South African Airways?
I read that there's some sort of discussion now as to whether they're going to liquidate or just totally wind down SA. So maybe this whole thing is...
They still haven't even wind down SA Express.
Yeah.
When last?
And it's probably going to take years. Probably not going to happen overnight.
It's a joke, man. It's a joke.
But at least the rest of Africa is Zimbabwe's just taken on their second 777. Fastjet is now flying into Joburg as well. Africa World Airlines now can't believe that it's the largest airline, and they are now flying 11 flights weekly into Nigeria now. So those actually just pushing.
And that's no surprise. They're it's an organized company. That's a nice bunch of guys and very well trained pilots there as well. Nice to see them doing well.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yep.
Ryan, what's happening on the charter side? We touched on tourism already, and obviously there's this sort of no one quite knows what to say about the opening of our borders, because they are partially open. So if you're coming from a high risk country, you can come into South Africa on business travel, not tourism travel. But not a lot of people actually know that. And obviously the big spenders in South Africa are the tourists from the US and the rest of Europe, which is regarded as a high risk areas. So obviously those would be the people utilizing the tourism sector of the charter world.
Well, exactly that. Most of the charter companies rely on their passengers coming from the US, Europe, all over England, France, and the Netherlands. And with all those countries being on the ban list now, it hasn't helped jumpstart charter at all. All fair and well that the borders are open, they can do some flights, some sort of regional activity, but nothing that's really going to jumpstart the charter economy again until these borders are open properly. It's tough, the lodges all heavily reliant on the charter industry, because with the airlines up and running. They're servicing, your big metros and places like Palabora and all that, but there's still no air connectivity between Johannesburg being the hub and the lodges. So yeah, it's critical that the borders are open properly very soon,
and at least clarity on when they would be open.
Exactly.
So people can make plans.
Yeah.
And obviously that's people going into the lodges and things like that. But another big part of the charter world is, they form quite an important backup to the existing scheduled airlines.
Yep.
So you got like African Charter Airline did a lot of flying for SA Express, and while the big airlines, Comair is not flying right now, Mango is flying on a minimal basis. It's there's no one really for the charter airlines to step into and help right now as well. So it's almost double affected. They're not flying the private things into the lodges, and they also there's no backup work for the big airlines other than Global. But I'm not sure we can regard Global as a charter airline.
Yeah, they're more of an aircraft leasing outfit,
Yeah.
which is like a backup to
And they're
airlines.
obviously backing up Mango quite heavily.
Yeah, and they're also part of this new startup that's going to be getting underway very shortly. Quite an interesting topic that as well. But just to quickly touch on the charter and the tourism industry. I mean, in the last 6 months, South Africa alone has lost 120 billion rand estimated. Let this drag on a little bit longer. They're estimating that up to 300,000 jobs in the tourism industry alone could be lost by the end of the year. So, how much worse should we actually ever get?
Numbers not too good. But what I find interesting, and obviously this is a financial thing, is some of the private jet hire companies in the States and that, their revenue's up 30-40% from 2 years ago. So the demand is there, but those guys there's a hell of a lot more people out there prepared to spend $10,000-$20,000 for a private flight. South Africa, what are you looking at? 150 grand if you want to charter a King Air down in Cape Town. There's very few people who are going to spend that money doing that. So
it's
the
your
economies are
overseas
just, it does come down to, if we don't have the foreign markets open to us, I think it's going to be a while still where the charter industry is going to take a hit.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but we need to support them. They do play a critical part of the tourism infrastructure here in South Africa. You touched on the new airline with Gideon Novik and the merger there with, well, not merger, but the sort of joint venture, I suppose, with Global. Did you see the ex-Norwegian air shuttle investor? They're launching a new Norwegian carrier. It was in Aviation Week. They're saying it's the right time to start a new airline, and they'll be able to lease aircraft relatively easily at good rates. There's no more sort of fighting for 737s and A320s anymore. They can get those aircraft relatively cheaply and easily. They can hire top-tier staff. There's top-tier staff available, and build a digital company with less complexity. So they are starting off afresh. Now, there was a interesting podcast this week with our friend from the UK, John Howell, with Derek Inseko from World Air News. I'll leave the details there in the show notes. It was a very good overview of what's happening in African aviation right now. And he believes, and I have to say I agree, they were talking about Comair. He didn't actually, I'm not so sure if he actually mentioned Comair directly, but I think they were hinting at Comair, that they're actually quite well placed right now because of the pandemic. Possibly this pandemic came at the right time for them, because that they were able, with the business rescue, to not cut overheads, but obviously the expenses came right down over this period, and now they are busy fine-tuning and placing themselves quite nicely into the market that will open up. There is talk that possibly the 1st of December they start flying again and offering tickets by 1st of November. That's sort of not official news, but that's what people are saying. We'll have to see. But again, going back to Novik and Global, if you're going to start an airline, now's the time to do it. And if
Yeah.
you're going to utilize the digital aspects and keep those costs down along the way, all the best to them. They've got a hell of a fight on their hands with SAFair. I still maintain it's going to be very difficult for anyone to take market share away from SAFair. And what concerns me a little bit, Ryan, on the charter side, and this is not certainly not having a dig at Airlink, because if I was running Airlink, I'd do the same thing. But are they not taking some of that charter market right now? Weekly, they are adding flights on. You know, they fly to the smaller airports, Airlink. So that's possibly would have been utilized as a charter in the past, you know, as an option. Now people look at it, and if Airlink provide a good service, which they do, you might find people say, well, this is easy, I'll just stick to using Airlink. So that's a bit of a concern.
It is. It's quite rightly so. It's a big threat to the charter industry. Obviously, it remains to be seen how many charter companies actually pull through this pandemic. You know, you can only see early 2021 how much damage has been done, really. But yeah, you know, with charter, it's all about connectivity and schedules and times like that. So who knows? You know, let's see what transpires out of that. A lot of people also, I think with charter, very often the guys from overseas that have money enjoy the convenience of having the airplane at their disposal with the crew that they're familiar with, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's not going to be like it was last year, that's for sure.
No, but there is nothing like that convenience. And that's
Yeah.
what you're paying for when you pay for a charter. You're
Yeah,
paying
exactly.
for that convenience and the flexibility that comes
And
with
the
it.
You're always
service.
going to have that market share there. You're
Mm.
always going to have those groups that they want their plane there. They want to be able to move around. They have their crew there. That's what they like. And you are going to have a loss to the Airlinks of the world who suddenly say, well, there is an opportunity. So I think it'd be interesting to know whether the charter companies are actually trying to do a deal with Airlink, such as an Airlink, and say, can we take over this bit for you? Let's do a revenue share. Let's do something. Let's get our planes flying.
Yeah,
I don't know if anything like that's been done.
I'm not so sure Airlink are really open to that. I don't know. I'm just, you know, it's my opinion, but I don't know if they're really open to that sort of thing. Who knows? It might all change now.
Well, Airlink have got such a range of aircraft,
Yeah.
different sizes, and
Look,
you know, they fly to a lot of airports, and they connecting South Africa right now. So, you know, hats off to Airlink. We're not having a, you know, dig at Airlink, but they certainly are chomping at the bit there to get some of that, what would have been a charter market.
Same goes now, just to digress a bit again, but like with, say, Comme and this new airline being up and running December, January, early next year, there's another 2 airlines with Airbus-sized aircraft operating. Do you think that the demand is really there for an extra 2 airlines?
But what about the regional stuff? Are SAFair going to go regional? Africa needs to be connected. Let's look in the past. We've had SAFair stuck to operating domestically, internally. SACS operated to Lubumbashi and Windhoek and the likes. Airlink heavy into Africa.
They're starting up all their regional stuff
so
now.
they're a big part of their market is regional.
Yeah.
You wonder if the new Comme is going to go as much as they can regionally as well. So again, this that podcast I mentioned, there's a lot of positivity when it comes to connecting the African continent, and particularly with the aircraft. You know, you can do what you might have found before, a wide body aircraft doing a particular route. Now, good chance it's Airbus 321s and what would be 73 Maxes and things like that. So the narrow body aircraft into Africa and the regional aircraft into Africa is going to be critical. The
challenge is the competition from Africa coming here. And I think...
And they're
that
well-run
is
airlines.
They get guaranteed to do it. It's happening already. So any South African outfit has to not only plan against local new airlines coming up, but they got to realize what's coming up from north, down south is going to be big competition for them.
You're 100% correct. That
True.
competition probably wasn't there pre-pandemic, but it is there now.
Yeah.
Because those airlines are good, they're well equipped, they've got the right aircraft. Those regional aircraft, Boeing came out with what they regard as a regional aircraft. They said anything less than sort of 90 seats.
Mm.
So you look at your ERJ 145s, and we're talking about Africa World Airlines and guys like this. They're a tough competitor, and you've got to have your ducks in a row before you go against them. Boeing dropped that 10-year global delivery forecast 11%, obviously because of the pandemic. The big focus of their trade will be the 777X, and that'll fill the void left by the retirement of the other wide bodies. We'll chat about the 747 later on. The majority of these aircraft deliveries, though, guys, are replacement aircraft. They're not adding on to the existing fleets, which is a big thing. So you might see aircraft deliveries. We mentioned some the other day, and it sounds, hey, that's not too bad. You know, the numbers last year were similar, but it's not. They're actually replacing those aircraft with the 747s and the 340s, and they're gone basically. And the 20-year forecast, they say 32,270 single-aisle aircraft will be delivered, and that includes 13,570 through 2029. The reduction from the previous forecast is mostly in the wide-body sector. So that is the sector heavily affected. Boeing concentrating on the 777X. They're even closing a Dreamliner plant. I think it was in Charleston, if I remember correctly, which is huge because the 787 is a brand new aircraft and a major part of the Boeing fleet structure. The only growth sector, and this is where I think Africa can come out on top, is in the regional market. Regional flying in Africa is such a big market. And Boeing believes they'll see deliveries of around 2,430 aircraft over the next 2 decades, which is versus 2,240 in last year's forecast. So the forecast for regionals has gone up.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was from the VP of Commercial Marketing, Darren Holst. That was an article in Aviation Week. Good article that, actually. We'll leave that in the show notes as well. But it's all playing into Africa's hands. I believe that aviation in Africa is going to come out strong.
I can't see anything other than it coming out strong. With what's happening worldwide, globally, we understand the Northern Hemisphere. We always expected that there's going to be this shutdown again in the Northern Hemisphere, and we're seeing it as clear as anything. And hopefully, the African countries and their governments look at this, and they don't just follow suit.
Yeah.
They're actually going to hopefully make decisions on their own, have a look at the current African environment, and make different decisions, do things differently.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, well, that's the concern.
Yeah.
That's the concern.
The US President, Donald, don't know if he did this from his hospital bed, but they want to pump more money into the CARES Act. I want to keep this. He says he'll sign right away. $25 billion to support airline payroll support, $135 billion for paycheck protection for small businesses, and he'll sign straight away based on the unused funds from the CARES Act so far. He's keen to support, but that, from what I understand in the US, that goes to basically American and United. I'm not even sure Delta was in that package. So, but the CARES Act has been critical to keep the job losses at a minimum, and the airlines still flying there. So they're going to need another major cash injection.
Although he's delaying it,
Yeah.
he hasn't signed it off. So it makes me wonder why. What is going on there? I don't know. Is he holding off to announce it just before elections?
Probably.
That's short time away.
Yeah.
So who knows what his thinking is there. There is talk that he's actually trying to extend that a lot more than what is already in that fund. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
So at least their government is willing to do more to help aviation than ours is.
Oh no, ours is not. Let's not beat around. They're not. All Nippon ANA announced they want to start voluntary furloughs and cutting of salaries and bonuses. But as soon as they did that, the Japanese government jumped in and looks like they're going to start supporting ANA for a while. EasyJet, you mentioned already, they are after state funding. You cannot survive this period as a big airline with the overheads you had and the expenses you had without state funding. That's what IATA said at the beginning before this even really got going.
Yep.
They need support from the governments. You have to jump in and support the airlines. And with these border openings, not just in South Africa, I mean, we can be as critical as we want here. At least everything's open, and we're not going towards the sort of shutdown stage like Europe and the rest of the world is. At least we are opening up. So there's this level of optimism that possibly wasn't here before.
There shouldn't be any reason for us to go back into a lockdown again. All our protocols, our procedures, everything is up and running. It's
and
effective,
they're working.
and our numbers are low. So, there's no reason for us to go backwards like the rest of Europe.
And we don't have these massive airlines either. You've
No.
got the small regionals and the domestics. They're small, they're nimble, they can make the necessary changes, and that should allow, because you're not hearing a huge amount of African airlines asking for bailouts. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's because they have that ability, they can change, and they can just change the way they operate. So the outlook from my perspective is Africa and the aviation industry should start booming. I honestly hope it does.
I agree. Plays into Africa's hands. And let's hope for the best there. Can we talk about, I was asked to address what happened with Emirates. They cancelled some flights here last weekend.
Yeah, a little bit of a faux pas from our government side there.
Have you got the whole story there? Something about they wanted to make crew arrive with a negative COVID test as well, and
Yes.
bit of a misunderstanding, but they're
Yeah.
back flying again.
It's all been sorted out. Big
Yes.
misunderstanding. Yeah, Emirates were unhappy about the fact that their crew were going to be treated the same as passengers as far as PCR testing and all that goes. But it's fixed up, it's sorted out, and Emirates are up and running. Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, all their schedules are back up, so that's cool.
Just to go over it again, if you're a business traveller from a high-risk country, you have to arrive in South Africa with a negative COVID test. I think it was a 72 hours.
Not longer than 72 hours.
Yeah.
But no leisure travel.
Yeah. South Africa is going to start offering tests at the airport now, which is an antigen test. It's not the same as the PCR test that they do, but it's an antigen test, which also is a good indicator of whether you've got symptoms or not.
But I got a problem with that though.
Yeah.
We need a standardized testing platform through the world. You can't have that test and then you arrive in Dubai or arrive in another country and they say, no, we don't accept this test. You've got to standardize. IATA need to jump on board, make a recommendation, I believe they have already, about what test is required, how to do it, get it done at the airport, and it needs to be accepted across the board in aviation worldwide. You can't have South Africa doing one thing, Ethiopia doing another, Dubai doing something else, all different rules, all different procedures. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
That is in a utopian world. It's never going to happen. Not in a million years.
Unless maybe the pull that comes from this, from IATA's perspective, I mean, all airlines have to comply. The same as if you've got a new law that comes into place, the whole world has to comply with that law. So why not write it into a gazette right now to say, right, this is the procedure, this is what you have to do at the airport, and off you go. I mean, there's some silly things, Ryan. When I travelled the other day, last week, to Cape Town, they closed the drop-off part in the airport. The pick-up and the drop-off section is closed. So you have to drive your car above the hire car parking lot, I think level 2 and level 3. You must see the chaos in the airport, dropping people off and picking people up. A nightmare. What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? AXA play a role as well. Open up, make it easy, make it accessible to travel.
Exactly.
Encourage the travel. Don't inhibit it. You want people to travel.
There's so much. It's tunnel vision. From our leadership across governments across the world. That's all it is. It's tunnel vision. The guys need to be more pragmatic about their approach to things, and yeah.
But in saying that, I believe they are opening up the drop-off and pick-up. They had in Cape Town, it was open, but not in Joburg. They need that open. They've got to make it accessible and easy to travel and encourage travelling.
Yeah.
Can we...
At the same time, there's so much fear around travel.
Yeah.
So these guys are trying to make decisions from an economic perspective. They're trying to make decisions from a saving lives perspective. They're looking at the fear factor attached to it. And whether or not we believe certain of those things or not, they're going to follow these things. And I'd love that where the whole world has a standard COVID test, a standard procedure, and it's rolled out everywhere. But as we can see in Africa, one country next to another, they've got two different viewpoints. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but hopefully we get there. I don't mind if we're able to travel. Great that there's a test there. If the government accepts it and you get your results in 30 minutes, what a pleasure. That's going to make life a hell of a lot easier for everybody traveling.
Exactly.
But you're right, Brett. It is a bit optimistic to think the whole world will get on board and comply with the same standard. But it's not just the testing; it's the confusion around quarantine. Have you guys been asked? People asking me questions. Yeah, but what happens if they test positive? Who does it work? Who does the cost fall on?
Interesting scenario. Know of someone who's got a ferry and aircraft now back to the States. Probably leaving today or tomorrow. Get to the States, drop the airplane off, turn around in transit, come back to South Africa via Doha. But obviously, you have a COVID test now. By the time you get back, it's going to have expired because it's going to be longer than 72 hours. What happens when they get back?
And you're almost too scared to give an answer to that question because it could change. And it's changing all the time. That's why go through a travel agent, please, and contact your travel agent. It's the only way to do it. If you don't want to, if you're worried about the testing and the quarantine, you've got a couple of options. Zanzibar, Mexico, and Brazil are some of the countries that don't require you to isolate or provide a negative test if you're planning to go there on holiday.
Straight to Zanzibar.
There are some measures taken upon arrival, but not nearly as strict as others. So that's Zanzibar, Mexico, and Brazil.
Don't go to Argentina. Argentina is still shut down, and they're saying it's going to be shut down for the rest of the year. So don't plan Argentina at all.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
Can we say goodbye to the 747? Last week we called the episode Cheers to the A380. Now it's cheers to the Queen of the Skies.
Yeah, not entirely. It's just that British Airways retired the last two of their 747 fleets. But, it's sad. I kind of really got a bit depro watching that video clip yesterday because BA is synonymous with the 747 and end of an era, man.
It is, and one of them had just been painted in that classic livery. It looked amazing. So they're off to be maintained at or museum somewhere.
So going to Duxford in the UK or one of those air museums, watching the Concorde, this 747s are going to be parked next to it, and that will be it.
Oh, shucks, man.
Yeah, we'll still see them flying around cargo and that, but I think from a passenger perspective, that's done. What was interesting with that, the IAG or the British Airways guys mentioned that this COVID brought that forward several years, so they didn't have plans to retire those 747s at all. They were going to carry on flying for quite a few more years. So it's sad that it's come early because that's by far I love the 747.
But I've never ever been in a 747.
No way.
Never ever.
No way.
Really?
Never ever. I've been overseas, countless times. I've always been in an Airbus or with, like a 340, 380 or 777. I've never ever in my entire life had a ride in a 747.
No, man.
Sad,
Jeez.
Well, I don't want to ruin your day, but you never gained.
Well, I don't know. You might be able to buy one quite cheap, right?
I painted in Bryan Ryan Podcast.
Yeah, sad to see the end of that, but we'll still see them flying around cargo. Remember we mentioned the guy flying around Los Angeles with a jetpack?
Yeah.
Have you seen what they're using those jetpacks for? Being tested out in the UK. They put a jetpack on these first aid guys, and they shoot them off into the mountains to go and rescue people that are stuck up there hiking and all sorts of things. I mean, how often have we had people up Table Mountain that get caught and they stuck up there? They're using guys on jetpacks to go and see if they can assist with the rescue, obviously with a chopper or something, and close by.
Yeah.
But at least the guy with the jetpack can actually land and assist the person. So that's what they're using jetpacks for. So you might see quite a few more of these guys in jetpacks flying around airports.
Jeez, that is interesting.
Cool.
I've seen the guys in Spa at the Grand Prix, and it's unbelievable what those jetpacks can do. Those guys can maneuver around brilliantly. So
who said there were no jobs for pilots?
I want one now.
What are you flying a jetpack? We're running out of time here, but can I just, Ryan, you might know more about this. Wizz Air are advertising for crew all the time.
Yeah.
Again, I saw yesterday that advertising for pilots at all levels. That's captains, first officers, low hour and cadet pilots. And I've got you written on my notes, WTF.
Yeah, I'm like just as perplexed.
What's going on? I mean, they've fired guys. They've fired a whole bunch of pilots, but there's advertising for hiring going on.
Yeah, it's I can't get my mind around that. I need to do some more homework on that too.
I try to do some homework.
Yeah.
I just can't find much. It's they are hiring, and I believe they have hired some guys. They're advertising for hiring at least. But they just recently got rid of a whole whack of guys. So
some of these pilot adverts out there are a bit suspect, because there's been quite a few adverts that have been coming out, and then you read the comments afterwards where it's like guys are saying, when you do apply for these jobs, they're saying, please do not send any more CVs. So I'm not sure how accurate all these adverts are.
I think business is changing on a daily basis, and the same as with airlines nowadays. So one day they look at it and business is down. Next day they maybe get a contract or something happens, so suddenly they advertise and they realize they've got a problem. But I also think airlines are playing a little bit of a game here, because you've got a lot of guys who are still employed. Now they want to fire them because they know they can get pilots at half the price or quarter of the price. Yeah. And that is the challenge that pilots are going to be faced with now. Bad working conditions, low pay, or is what the States does, is just you pay as you fly. You get paid as you fly. So I think it's going to be it's a very tough market for pilots right now.
Yeah, you're going to be constantly feeling like you're walking the plank. Very uneasy, unsettling sort of environment to be flying in, actually.
Yeah, I think from a career airlines point of view, you won't walk into an airline and expect to be there for the next 15 or 20 years. But in saying that, doesn't it open up the opportunity for some airlines that are going to treat pilots well and offer good working conditions? There'll be a huge attraction
definitely
to go to those airlines. And let's hope that happens.
Yeah, see what happens.
Always a pleasure.
Shot, boys.
And 10-year bro romance anniversary. Well done, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know how the hell the two of you put up with each other for 10 years now. But anyway.
Fix it with beer.
From the aircraft to the microphone podcast table. Quick shout out to Franz Smith and his team from Pilot Insure. They invited me the other night to their opening of their new office here in Benera Park. He's got a good team around him, and he's a real positive aviation guy. Classic sort of aviation guy.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, you weren't invited.
Oh, okay.
And
thanks, Franz.
After 10 years, trust me, you get used to it.
Yeah, and all our other friends for all the support. So thanks, guys, so much, and we really value it. And please share this on to all your friends, and as many people as far and wide as we can spread this, the better. We're trying to shoot out as much positivity as we can. We're not looking for any money. We just want your support, and we want to support you, and hopefully you can support us. Until next week, cheers for now.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Well, that's all for this week, folks. Thanks for listening and for your continued support. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and pass the show on to your friends, your families, and your colleagues. If you'd like to get in touch with us, my email address is in the show details. Stay positive, keep the passion alive, and we'll see you next week. Cheers for now.